Hey guys, welcome back to Mayfield Ranch. Let me show you how I plant my tomato plants and how I use this twine as an inexpensive solution for support and also trellising my tomatoes up. So let me show you how we do it. So today I'm out here in my garden and I wanted to show you guys how I plant my tomato plants. So I've got these tomato plants that I started from seed in this solo cups. There are holes in the bottom of these. So what I'm going to do is there's some growth on the side of the stem. I'm actually going to remove this so that I can plant these deeply, and the intention there is that they're going to grow more roots. So the better their root system, the better these plants are going to perform for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take off all the stems maybe about 6 or 8 inches above the cup so that I could plant it pretty deeply and still establish more roots. So let me show you how I'm going to dig the hole and do that. And I'm going to show you a couple of different things. Okay, so I've got my hole and it's probably maybe a foot deep or so. We'll check it out for size. So that's pretty good. That's about what I wanted. Do one more thing as I put it into the ground. I'm going to use this twine and create a trellis. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm simply going to take some of this twine and put it around the root system, just so when I put it in the ground, it holds it. So it's kind of just wrapped around and it's going to hold it. So I'm going to set that down in the hole that I made. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around a couple times. And just backfill that hole with dirt. And my goal here is that my plant will be healthier. It's going to grow more roots. So although it looks kind of puny now when I put it in, it looks a little sad when it was quite a bit bigger when I just had it in the cup, it should grow good roots for me and perform well. Okay, so I've wrapped this twine around the plant a couple of times. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to provide it with some support, because essentially I want to use this twine to trellis my tomato up to where the cattle panel is. So I'm just going to take it and then tie it off up here. And it's not super tight. There's a little bit of give. I'm maximizing the space that I have on this cattle panel. So I have the cattle panel between the raised beds, but on this end it's open. So I'm using the twine to reach up to the cattle panel and essentially maximize the space on this entire part of the raised bed. So I'm going to put my other 2 tomatoes here and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to get another hole here dug so I can put my next plant in. We're going to dig it nice and deep. Okay, so here's another tomato plant. So let's take it and we're going to take off. There's another little baby in there. We're going to get rid of that. And we'll take it out of the cup here. So plenty of roots. It really probably should have been transplanted, sometime earlier. But we're getting around to it. We're going to do it now. It's going to be just fine. So I'm just going to break off some of these lower stems just right off the plant because I want to put this under the dirt. I want it to establish more roots. I think I'm going to go ahead and just also take this one off, and that will be good. That'll be good enough. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to leave these on. So you can see this is a couple feet tall. So I'm going to take the twine. I cut a piece of twine, and I'm just going to put the twine underneath the plant. Maybe wrap it around just once so that I can kind of get it in position, and I'm going to go ahead and put it down in the hole. So the twine's still there. Just backfill the hole with the dirt that I took out. And you notice the soil down lower is all plenty moist when a couple inches on top is a little drier. So go ahead and backfill. Now I'm just going to take this twine and wrap it around the plant a couple more times relatively loosely, just kind of getting in between. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to get a little bit of support. We're going to take our twine and we're just going to tie it up to the top here. Now, I'm not going to tie it super tightly. I want to leave a little bit of give here because I want to be able to continue to wrap it around and twist the plant around it. So I'm going to go ahead and just tie this up a couple times so it's secure, but it's not super rigid. There's plenty of space here. I'll be able to wrap that plant around it. A little bit of wind is not going to break it. Okay, guys, I want to give you one more option. If you don't have deep raised beds and you can't just plant your tomato plant deeper, I want to show you one more option you could use to get that root development, and that is just lay it down. So I'm going to dig a little bit of a trench right here. Just create a little bit of a trench. It doesn't have to be very deep as you're able to make it. I tend to want to maximize the water that my plants have access to, because it gets pretty hot here. So I'm going to dig a trench a little bit deep just so that I can get that benefit of the water. If you can't, like if you're planting in the ground and you can't get down this deep, it's okay. The idea here is just to get that stem in the dirt, get it in the soil so that you can establish a better root system. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So I've got a couple plants here. I'm going to take it out of the container and just loosen up the roots a little bit. Now, I'm going to just take one of these out just so that the other one has a chance to be healthy. We have plenty of extra tomatoes, so that's what I'm going to do with this one. And I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier. I'm going to pull off all the growth along the stem up until the point that I want to put this in the ground. So I want to leave some growth on top so that the plant can photosynthesize. So let me show you how I'm going to do this one. Now I still want to put the twine on this one. So I'm going to put the twine over it just so that it is still kind of fastened in the ground, and I'm going to just lay it down. And now I'm just going to backfill with the dirt. And I'm going to let this just kind of lay down. I'm not going to try to stand it up. I'm going to let it figure it out on its own. I'm just going to wrap this a couple of times. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to tie it up to the top. Just going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm not going to pull too tightly on the plant. Just this having a little bit of slack in it is perfectly fine. I'm just going to tie it up so that there's a place for this plant to grow up, and just use this as a trellis. Okay, so let me show you what all three of these look like. So there's the first one that we did, and you can see the twine is kind of wrapped around it, and it's tied up here to the cattle panel. And we'll come over to the next one. It's tied up to the cattle panel. There's plenty of slack still in this twine, so I can move this around. I have room to wrap the tomato plant around it as it grows, and it's wrapped around there, but not too tightly. And this tomato plant, when I show you later in the season, it'll grow all the way up to that cattle panel. This is an indeterminate tomato. And here's our third one. So this is the one that we laid down. You can see that I didn't try to get it to stand up. I just let it lay on its own. It will naturally figure it out and it'll start growing up. And I have the twine just wrapped around it a couple of times and tied up to the cattle panel. So I'll continue to update you guys and just show you what these look like as they grow, because this is a perfect, inexpensive way to make a trellis. Now, I also want to tell you that if you didn't put the twine on when you planted the tomatoes, it's totally fine. You can just tie it around the base loosely and use it that way. You can just tie it up. It's absolutely fine. It will work perfectly. It is easier to do when you plant the tomato because there's no additional tying. You just set it under the root ball and it works great. But don't let that discourage you. If you've already got your tomato plants in the ground and you need a trellis, go ahead and get some twine. It will absolutely work perfect. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this informative, and I hope that this is something you're able to use in your garden so you can grow right along with us. If you haven't already subscribed, please be sure to do so, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you're alerted when we release a new video each week.